All right. Thank you very much for everybody for showing up. We're going to kind of wait for a few people to roll in here. And of course, everybody, what's the chance, Greg? Do you think the gentleman from Hong Kong is going to show up and from France today? I mean, we got Hong Kong and France. We almost went around the world last week.
Yeah. No, it's we're not just nationwide. We're global.
Yeah. It's like ZZ Top nationwide, right? Back, I don't know if that was the Eliminator tour.
So, hey, Charles.
That's way before my time, though. It's way before my time.
So Charles, I like this is that, we were talking last week after Peyton and Eli had their little, side screen with Monday night. We go, hey, we need to have like somebody we can bring them in during the call. And, Barkley and Brett Favre weren't available, but you were, which was great.
Yeah, I'm happy. At least I have good company while in consideration.
Well, I will tell you this. So, I want to tell everybody, Nick, if everybody can put up Kirk Miller, how's everything over in Indiana? Good to see you today. We had Charles on one of our shows months ago, and Charles pointed it out to me. I think your wife pointed it out to you too. You were one of the most viewed on our YouTube video.
Yeah, surprisingly. Because I haven't gotten a haircut since March of this year.
Yeah, well, it's like
I'm just impressed that your wife knows you're in the lumber business, Charles. Mine barely does.
Well, Greg, when we were
lumber business has so many different definitions.
True.
Devil's in the details, right?
Greg and I were grabbing dinner with our wives last week, and we mentioned about lumber being excited, and both Mindy and Julie looked at each other and rolled their eyes and laughed and it's like, I love doing it. I go home and try to talk about lumber, and my wife looks at me like,
the only person at home you can talk to about lumber, Ash, is the dog.
And I do. And
yes, exactly.
And you're, at least when you do that, you're right. You're not just one opinion. You're right 100% of the time.
And here's how I do that. I get a bag of these peanut butter treats, and I just keep handing them to Jill, my dog, while I'm talking to her. So at least she wags her tail and believes me, right? Funny. All right, so Charles is from Industrial Forest Products. And Charles, why don't you introduce yourself, say what you do. I got to know Charles over the last year and enjoy the heck out of talking to him and doing business with him and doing stuff on the platform. So give us a little bit about yourself, Charles.
Industrial Forest Products is a vertically integrated wholesale trade company. I started it in early 2016. We vertically integrated in late 2019. We've got 3 specific divisions. So obviously we're active in all major species, but we also have the ability to PET trim anything possible. We've got 3 trim lines. We do a lot of spruce studs. We do Euro studs and Southern Yellow Pine studs. On top of that, we've got a custom wood packaging division that does highly technical engineered wood packaging products for various customers across the Carolinas, really. With that stuff, you're shipping a lot of air, so transportation is a big concern. Outside of that, what we got going on, we're adding another trim line, which should add about 25% capacity to what we're doing currently. And we just try to stay in the market every day, right?
Yeah, cool. One of the cool things you told me, Charles, is what you've done to really create a great brand about tolerances. Like, you say when you get a load from us, 99% of it's going to be within X of a PET tolerance, right? Which is huge because, and I've sent your wood to people through the platform, and they absolutely love it, right? Especially the Euro studs. It's great, and now you've got the ability to tack over to Southern Yellow Pine and PET. That's huge for multifamily. I'm sure. Hopefully, that's starting to catch hold for you.
Ash, that's because you're used to shipping reman studs that the guy cut it with a chainsaw.
Yeah, well, it's a big chainsaw, right?
Yeah.
It's still a chain, though. It's still a chain.
Everything tolerance isn't that tight.
Yeah.
No, because the standard is 1/8 of an inch on 20% of the load, right? Is acceptable. Anything that we push out the door, we hold about a 32nd. So anything we send to a job site, to a manufactured housing facility, modular housing facility, has about 100% yield, and that's a big deal when you start combing through and culling product, especially when prices were as high as they are or were. It brings a lot of value to the bottom line for sure.
Yeah, right on. So I appreciate that. So we're going to jump into this with our this week in lumber. I wanted to also say we are starting Lumber Futures for Dummies next Tuesday at 12 o'clock Central Time. So again, that's going to be Lumber Futures for Dummies, 12 o'clock Central Time next week. And there'll be a dummy teaching it, me. And I'll have some guests on too, and we'll talk about it. So, and tomorrow I got Matt Lehman on Lunch with Lumberman. So before we'll start out a little bit before we went live here, we were talking about we'll talk about this later in labor issues and traders fatigue. Going on claims. So just real quick, what's the funniest or most interesting or craziest claim either one of you guys have been on? And just give us a brief thing about it.
Greg, I'll let you lead that charge. Go ahead.
Claims? I don't know. I don't know that I've ever had a claim in this business. No way. No, the crazy one is when you got a claim and you go out and there's no lumber there. I've had that happen. We went out, like we had a claim and we got there. So where's it's not here.
It's been used, but we want a credit.
Yeah. It's like, but we needed an adjustment. We got, we just, we dumped it in the garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and look, I know claims are serious a lot of times, but I've run into a couple of them before where you go out there and you're like, "Where's the bad lumber?" And you look around and there's nothing but good-looking stuff sitting around, right? So, Charles, what about you? What's your most interesting one?
I mean, I think they all have the same undertone, really. I think there's something that's overlooked. I mean, it's not really funny because it gets expensive and take time into consideration. I mean, we've, with our pallet side, I guess the funniest thing is we've sold wood that gets rain wet and some of our truss customers or modular customers will refuse it. I mean, we'll buy refuse loads and put them in our pallet production. So, I mean, it kind of gives us an added value or a third prong on the sell side as well.
Yeah, cool. I appreciate it. Chris from Hong Kong is here. And Mike from Shelton, Washington is here also. Great to see you, Mike. Let's start out real quick and talk about housing starts, existing homes, Greg, and we'll chat about that a little bit.
So the housing start report came out yesterday. I mean, I guess, the highlights that I pulled out of it were year to date for 8 months. We're up 25.7% in permits, 21.5% in the starts. And my big number is, and we talked about this last month, is authorizations. That's permits have been pulled, but it has not started, are now up 50% versus last year. Whoa, so that's steadily the authorized but not started continues to grow, which I look at as a real positive in terms of that's Why is that? Well, part of it is because we have the constraints on other supply chain and labor, et cetera. But the great thing is that just keeps building the runway of months of good business in front of us.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that is actually that high. Is that the highest? So, can I ask a question? Do you know the answer to this? Is that the highest that's ever been in housing, or do you have that data?
I don't have that. I should look. I should look to see if I can dig that number out. How high the actual number has been.
Okay. And how did that break down?
I mean, I'm saying is I think the number for the month. Hang on, I have that right here. Well, but like while I'm pulling that out, existing home sales came out today. And they were down a little bit from last month, but there again, I pulled out, the info that I pulled out of the report was the month's supply of existing homes was 2.6 months. Price of existing home was up 13.4% from the same time. Oh, no, take that back. 14.9% from last year. So, low supply, higher prices, all of this, all the housing data says that housing is on very solid footing.
So, Greg, what's the punchline to the joke? Or what's the availability of existing homes for sale?
All of them. It's just a question of what price.
Charles, anything?
I bet your house is even for sale at some price.
I told my wife if it ever got to this number, I would sell it. And she reminded me of that the other day, that we're almost to that number. And I'm like, I never said that. Right.
Yeah.
I think I was just joking, honey. So, Charles, any feedback on the housing starts? Anything you're seeing there? Anything nuances with multifamily or anything?
I think we're seeing a lot more inquiries. We're seeing a lot more people pull the trigger. Obviously, lumber price has a lot to do with that. But I also think everybody's gotten their overpriced wood. And once again, they're having some takeaway, right? Because people, as Gregg mentioned, are anticipating a runway of good business to come. So they're gathering the horses, so to speak, to make sure that they can execute as well as possible. Because once those other logistical supply chain bottlenecks solve themselves, it's going to be gangbusters. I mean, when you can actually get windows on time and tubs, as you mentioned a week ago, that's when you have to have somewhere to put it, right?
Hey, Charles, you watched the show last week. If you mentioned tubs, didn't you?
I did.
That's all. Well, look, so let's talk a little bit about the market there. And that makes sense. So market-wise, I know a lot of the people getting on the platform and looking and calling are multifamily people that on all ends, from the multifamily providers down to the big framers, are starting to look for stuff, and they're seriously bidding on stuff now, right? Where they weren't a few months ago. So the market seems to have, and we'll just run through all the different stuff. Spruce is one market. It's got a big, crazy basis right now. The price is up how much in the last month, Gregg? $150 about.
Yeah, I mean, I think print's up $120, and probably the trading market's up more than that.
More than that, it's up. I mean, like Charles said, easy even. So the absolute low trade where stuff traded versus where we're at now is probably even $250, right? Let's just say, or more on some items, especially when you're getting into studs, 9-foot stuff, and then you get the Southern Yellow Pine. That market is still trying to find legs. I still see some wides out there that are available, but the low grade and the 4-inch and 6-inch is a little tougher. Charles, does that sound right or not?
I mean, 6-inch is near historic lows, right? I mean, average 2 to 4 or 2 to 6, number 2, anywhere from $300 to $400.
Okay,
low 4s. Prints at what, $360. So I mean, it's a bargain buy if you have the ability to upgrade that product, right? Which is where we would come in, right?
Right.
No shameless plug here, right? But
it makes sense.
I mean, if you don't shamelessly plug when you get the layup like that, Charles, I mean,
but and you look at finished goods, right? I mean, you speak specifically on 2 to 6.9 studs, right? That price in spruce versus Southern Yellow Pine, there's a huge arbitrage opportunity between the two.
So how much is off? Is it off about right now, Charles?
Close to $80 to $100.
Okay.
Easy.
But Charles, one of the things is I mean, that's been pretty stable in terms of, a spread for what? I mean, and it's been wider. I mean, at one point it was $400, $500, $600, right? I mean,
easy.
That spread has consistently been where 6-inch pine has been way under spruce. And I guess, my question is, like, the 4-inch seems to stay a lot closer. Why is it that the 6-inch is as wide? You think?
I think, you've got a lot of big trust guys that have stepped in on 2x4. I mean, $500 2x4 historically is based on what we've seen in the last 24 months is a good bargain number, right?
Right.
But when you look at 2x6, 2x6 and 2x8, in my opinion, are kind of the redheaded stepchild of Southern Yellow Pine. And Gregg, to kind of touch on your point, as far as there's always historically been a large spread between the two, you're exactly right. But I think based off of what we're coming off of from the past 18 months and price discrepancies and random bringing up the fact that you got trust guys out in Texas that are subbing spruce for pine and other guys trying to re-engineer drawings, the pulpability of Southern Yellow Pine for a spruce application is becoming stronger and stronger by the day. And I think not only is it because of the pricing structure and the pricing events, right, that we've seen over the past 18 months, but it also has to do with the fact that, quite frankly, Western Canada is not going to be as big of a player long-term over the next 30 years as the Southeast is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the price volatility of the last 12 months, there's been more species switching, more re-engineering based on availability, which has kind of really opened up a lot of product in markets that normally it didn't get to.
Yep.
Yeah,
but I still am always amazed at the guy when you give him, you give him a great alternative, and I can't do that. I go, well, yeah, you can. You're just choosing not to, and there's a difference.
Yeah, because it's not easy, and it's not easy for them to look at their piece of paper and say, hey, I got to do something different than I've done for the last 15 years, right?
Well, we've always done it that way, guys. We've always done it that way.
Yeah. Because right now, I mean, 6-inch 9-footers. I'm saying today they're actually $200 under spruce today.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I mean,
So which is interesting.
Is that a lot?
Well, think about it. Like I said, we've always done
perspective, Greg. Perspective. I mean, I would make the switch. I mean, if I was buying 20 trucks or 15 trucks for a job, I'd take the time to do due diligence to make sure I pocketed that cash. But hey,
so
that's just you. That's just you.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's go back to the one thing everybody likes talking about too. OSB. OSB seems to have bottomed out 4 weeks ago. Kind of did. Charles, you're usually pretty good in the Southeast market. What are you seeing on OSB in the biggest producing area?
It's kind of touch and go, honestly. You got guys that have needs and they're covering them, and you have guys near-term needs and they're buying them. You also have multifamily guys that are putting out feelers for first quarter of next year.
Yeah,
they're looking for forward pricing, and the question from a panel standpoint is, you look at it historically. December and first quarter of January specifically, OSB prices are always depressed, right? I think one of my mentors in this business always told me, he's like, if you buy OSB at $200 in January, you'll be a rich man come June. Well, I mean, over the past 15 years, that's kind of held true. But the question now is you went from $900, $1,200 wood to what happened in the fourth quarter of last year. Is that going to happen again if you're using price forwards? How do you hedge that bet? Number one. Number two, if you do you have enough meat on the bone to cover it either way? So it's manufactured housing. They still have $700-800 wood. Modular housing, same thing. You still have retailers that are selling sheets in mid-20s. So it's touch and go. But then you have Lowe's and Home Depot that you're going up against for 9 units at a time versus a truckload, and they want, they're under you by 25 cents, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's a loss leader for those guys. So it works.
Well, I mean, it's also is they had the least amount of costed inventory, so they were able to adjust their costs rolled down so much quicker than anybody else, right?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Lowe's did a huge humanitarian project in Charlotte and donated a bunch of OSB. But a donation is better than a loss, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, doesn't charity start at home?
It does, indeed.
So, hey, I was going to ask you. So, you brought up a good point when we were talking about this, Charles. And I've heard this, and I can't. Maybe trader fatigue. Tell me about it. What's it's got so many different meanings to it. What do you think about when we're sitting here today and it's the 22nd of September and we're worn out from doing a bunch of stuff?
You want to pick 2 markets and that's it.
No,
whether it's historically speaking, I mean, I myself trade Canadian spruce, Euro spruce, Southern yellow pine, and OSB mainly on the panel.
Let's talk about just trader fatigue and everything. I mean, in a way. Right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, when you get so tired of the price volatility, like Greg mentioned, $200 price discrepancies between 9-footers and spruce versus pine, spruce being up $150, it makes you just want to say, okay, I'm going to pick these 2 items, stay in my box for the next 90 days, and live to fight another day, Q1 and 22. I mean, it's tiresome, and you, as a trader, you can't sell out of an empty wagon, right? So you gotta make sure that you have product to sell, that you're hedged correctly, and you're kind of covering your own, what. But it's difficult when you have one market, such as spruce, that is up $150, and you have pine, which is a direct derivative of spruce, because now, even more now than ever, because of the substitution capability or openness to do that, and it's barely getting any footing.
Do you think the future? You think the futures plays into that, Charles?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think it does because it's the easiest natural hedge, right? As far as spruce goes, and you have some people that are active in that financial instrument market that are not active in the physical. So there's a little bit more players in the game, right? Where Southern yellow pine, there's not a direct derivative unless you're doing lumber swaps. So
yeah, no, that's great. Greg, you and I have talked about it before too, but just like you'll just sometimes say this wears you out, right? What's your?
Well, I mean, I likened a lot of the last 12 months like sitting in this chair as being an indie driver. I was watching that new Netflix thing on Formula One.
Formula One, yeah,
exactly. And no, because you had to be like strapped in. The prices were changing so rapidly sometimes that it was virtually impossible to stay on top of it. Fortunately, in the rising part of it, it's okay because the market bailed you out of every mistake that you made. But in the last 3-4 months, it's really accentuated. Every mistake that I made cost a ton of money.
Yeah, well, before we got on the call, it's like, I've been on a couple of claims because you got to handle them right away, and they're not small. It's not. There's no $100 or $200 claims in this business anymore. I mean, this is like
1,000,
Charles.
200, maybe 100, 200, 1,000.
Yeah, and a lot of those mistakes are starting to show up at places. Older wood stuff, like you always said, Greg. There's a theory or a rule that any wood that comes in before April should be out before Labor Day.
Well, no, actually, right? I think before April should be out by the 4th of July. And if it's in before the 4th of July, should be out by Labor Day.
Why do I think that didn't happen this year?
Yeah.
Look at any chart,
to the extent that it needed to.
That'll tell
right.
you.
So that adds to the complexity of all it. That's pretty cool to talk about. We'll still talk about that. So we kind of touched on this about the different things opening up. Labor markets, where are we? Are they opening up a little bit? Greg?
I can tell you
Charles.
I can tell you, to kind of play off of what Greg said as far as accentuating mistakes, right? Kind of the craziness of the past 12 months, you've been able to throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. And if you have a revolving door, you just replace them and it doesn't matter what it costs. You just need production, right? From our standpoint, well, after the market changed, that exposure reared its ugly head tenfold, right? And it also put us in a position to where, quite frankly, there are some days where I'm running a trim saw, honestly, because we don't have enough bodies to do it. And, we have automatic stackers that we invested in, and we have one line that has one, and we're looking at putting them on the other two trim lines. But, even then, you still have to have guys that are placing fern strips and strapping and bagging and sticking them outside. And it's tough. And, you look at how spoiled everybody has been to what has transpired over the past 12 months. Work ethic is just not what it used to be.
Oh man, I got to tell you, yeah, no, I certainly agree with you there. So, if you could, so what you're saying is if there was decent people available, you could hire some more people.
We had almost 30 guys on the floor at the end of August. We have 15.
And they just.
And I had 2 guys that just walked out yesterday, just left. Didn't tell me or floor manager, nobody, just left.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's that adds to trader fatigue too.
Yes, it does.
Greg, anything economically you're always tied into like all the people on the economic side, anything you're hearing on labor that we don't know about?
No, I don't. I think it's basically common knowledge and everybody is in that same boat. My question I keep putting out there is I'm going, okay, so there's 10 million job openings. Why is anybody not have a job that wants one, right? And the bottom line, as you get back to, is everybody that wants one has one. So where do we go? Where do we go from here?
Why does it
automation?
Why does it cost me $150 to take an Uber home from Chicago to my house now when it used to be $25?
Yeah.
Because people aren't working because somehow they're getting paid for not working.
Metra, baby. Metra. Come on.
Yeah, I do. I try to, if you time it wrong, it's hard to do. The first half production numbers, Greg.
Total U.S. and Canada production for the first half of the year was up 8.2%. U.S. was up 5.3%. Here's the interesting thing to me is that Southern production in the first half was only up 3.4. We keep talking about how, there's all this production coming on the South, yet it's really kind of slow in coming. Western U.S. production was actually up 8%. And
which is the one you would think wouldn't be up at all.
Right. I'm not sure how much, COVID production curtailment second and third quarter last year are going to play into these numbers and kind of skew them. But, Canada, first half of the year, up 12.8. BC was up 20% in the first half.
So
how is that even possible?
Well, that's actual production?
That's actual production numbers. Eastern Canada was up 8.4. So, like I said, is again, the numbers. I think numbers are skewed somewhat because of what happened. Because COVID last year is going to affect second and third quarter numbers a lot, and the comparison year over year. So, it's going to be a while for that all to flush through. U.S. imports totaled 21. We're up 21%.
In the first 6 months.
The first 6 months of the year. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And according to everybody I'm talking to, there's zero European coming in now, right? At least that's what I hear. Well, no, we do not. We're not shipping anything because of the price. Okay.
Not true. Not true.
Yeah, there's plenty of euro still coming in, right?
I think there may have been. We talked about this over the last few months. There was issues where there was certain ports that were jam full, and so there was embargoes. They shipped to some other ports. I think there's some of the smaller players may have backed off some, but everybody else is, they're committed to the market. They're committed to the market. You'd have to have a sustained, 6 months at really low numbers to see a dramatic fall off. Because, from a planning standpoint, lumber that's hitting a port today was put in that process started 3 months ago.
Yeah, good point. So will you think the back half, the last 6 months of the year will be greater than the first 6 months as far as euro goes coming in here?
In absolute, no, I don't. I think we're at, because if you think about it, the prices shot up starting July, August, and then the increase in euro imports really got going kind of October, November.
Christopher Blatt said they're still shipping. Hey, Christopher, are you shipping more or less in now than you were in the first 6 months? I'd be curious to know. And Jean-Francois Gilbert, hope I got that labor situation. Same in Europe, mills, UK drivers. And James Brecht, it's not the work ethic that has changed. It's the work that has changed. More options for the labor force. Does that sound right, Charles?
I don't know if I agree with that. Because, you have skilled trades that, I have friends that own plumbing companies and can't find people that can be plumbers.
Yeah.
I don't think the options have really theoretically changed. You think about how COVID is still controlling some of these bigger cities and some of the requirements to return back to work. What are the options? You have restaurants that are shutting down for a day or two to give employees breaks, right?
Yep.
What as far as options go, I'd be real curious to know what that is. And now, granted, I may have a skewed view because we're in an extremely rural situation, but the same plants that have been here are still here, and the same job opportunities are still here, and they continue to grow. And we're real loyal to our guys, and we treat them well. We do 30-day reviews and give 20% raises based on production and performance. Yeah. So it's a competitive job market because less people are active in it, and I think that's the key takeaway.
Gotcha. Great point, Greg. And I interrupt you when you were talking about the euro too. It's, Christopher Blatt said yes. They're shipping less, but still shipping than the first half. If hopefully you heard me right, and that kind of coincides. That kind of circles up with what you were saying too, right?
Yeah, I think if we were up, 20% in the first half versus last year, maybe by the end of the year we'll only be up, 10 or 12%, right?
Absolutely. So you look at you've had a big following on your LinkedIn polls. And you did a poll last week or this week, and kind of the way
Yeah.
what were the results of it
So,
so far? What was the question?
this week's poll, and the polling data. I think I need to take a polling class. Well, no. I was going to go somewhere with that, and then I decided not to.
Well, you were talking about IndyCar, so you must have a pole position, right?
So, I think as we've been doing this polling, we've talked about it's revealed it's been pretty accurate in kind of revealing what's going to happen in a George Costanza kind of a way, is like whatever the poll leans towards, the market ends up doing the opposite, which is,
So it's like a Festivus poll
for the rest of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my question was, hey, lots of volatility. Have we seen the market low of the year? No. We'll hit new lows in Q4. Yes, and we're going a lot higher. Or yes, but we're not going much higher. So, as of right now, the poll's still open. 25% feel like we're going to hit new lows in the fourth quarter. 57% say, yes, we've hit the low, but we're not going much higher. I like when I'm more like 75 to 80% on one side of the boat. That gives me a clearer picture. But I guess my conclusion is that either we're going a lot higher or we're going to make new lows, or both.
Crystal clear.
Or both.
Thanks for the direction.
That's
I'm an economist by trade, Charles. So
okay.
I want to make sure that I can always be right.
Hey, Greg, I gotta ask you one question, and I can't take my eyeballs off it. You got a screen on behind you that just looks beautiful. What is it?
That would be my materials exchange. Oh, hang on. Losing my headset. That would be my materials exchange board. I've got some offers up, some pretty aggressive pricing. I'm looking for bids. Right
on. I love it. You always have that up every week. Well, I think that kind of covers everything.
Oh, I got a question though.
Go ahead, Charles.
So obviously fourth quarter and imports, as the data has described, as far as Euro versus Western Canada and Eastern Canada, those are kissing cousins, right? So at some point, stumpage pricing for Canadian stumpage versus sale prices, or where the market is going to have some sort of influence, right? From what I'm being told, it's a 90-day trailing sales average. So that would put stumpage pricing based off of Q2 sale numbers, right?
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to affect it? Because you're talking about polar opposite deals here. You're talking $1,800-$1,900 wood versus $580 wood.
I think that may have a lot to do with why we see such big premiums in the futures, reflecting a price that's above the break even. We also have an increase in the tax on Canadian lumber coming in late November. So that's going to impact that. I think all of those factors say that those prices are going to be higher than maybe they are right now.
So what I'm gathering based off of some of the data points that you have used in your own personal opinion, you can no longer call yourself an economist because you picked a side.
I pick a side every day, Charles. I'm in there. I'm always, you got to be, hey man, you got to be in to win. But what Matt and I have tried to talk about in this format is we work really hard to try and divorce our personal trading position from the information that we impart to people, because as you probably know, the fact is every one of us is a product of whatever our position is. We're going to pick data that support that position. And one of the things I like about this is that it helps kind of keep me a little honest with myself. Yep. Right.
I would agree.
and anything that forces me to challenge what I think I know is good for me.
Russ Taylor just put up here. Thanks, Russ. And Russ, I was going to point him to the article that you put out that was really good about the differences and the nuances between Alberta and BC. So Russ just said BC interior SPF break even 2x4 number 2 prices will be over US 550 in Q4. So I guess my question is, if the prices stay down there, when do those log prices start rolling over? Right? Is that kind of one of the questions, Charles? Or
I mean, once again, we're going to pick 2 or 3 items and stay in a box for the next 90 days. But if you look at it from a standpoint of what we do in Euro spruce mainly, just kind of curiosity, because I think there are other markets that are getting better numbers. A lot of that has to do with the fact they lock in pricing for a longer term, quarterly specifically. But anything that does come here, what does that volatility look like, or what is the undertone of the market based on the beast that is Canada, right?
Right. I mean, one of the interesting things that I'm sure we will see over the next month is these little obscure emails that you see coming out with a chain of about 10 people on them saying, hey, heard there's a log fire deck at this place. Hey, I heard this guy's taking 35% production off. Forward it to all your buddies, right? I mean, one of the things that gives us trader fatigue in the industry is, and that we got to spend all day, is drilling down to the real details and what's the reality of everything we hear is, right? Because we talk to a lot of people and we like chatting it up and what we heard from this guy's sister's first removed cousin's boyfriend. But we've got to, at the end of the day, find the real details to stuff and figure out what's going on, right? And that's always a fun thing to do.
Ash, I'll just leave everybody where, I'm really excited that you're taking the charge and looking to educate the people on futures for dummies.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
I think it's a really good idea.
And I'll just say there is so much opportunity right now for I'm not going to say riskless, but for managed risk.
Did you just call me riskless? Go ahead.
For managed risk, I mean, to your point, when you look at the premium that November and January are carrying, and you can go the easy route and take the things that have closer correlation in the spruce items, or you can really go out there and, hey, if you have warehouse space there, I mean, look at the seasonal price averages on yellow pine Q4 to Q1. There's a reason why those prices are what they are, and it's because Q4 is the highest production quarter of the year and Q1 is the lowest production quarter of the year. Yeah, so that's irrespective of everything else.
Now you got me thinking of, not only are like 2x6 Southern Pine absolutely good values, their relative value must be off the frickin' charts.
Bingo!
Right?
We got a winner.
I think that's what we were talking about when we first got on
coming
here.
By.
Yeah. Well, then you drill down. Then you drill down to certain lengths and go into specific lengths of those items and find the real sweet spot on that, right?
Yeah. Remember when we filled that warehouse up with 2x12, 18s, and 20s, number 2 yellow pine? People are going, why are you buying them? Well, because you're selling them for $275 1,000.
And the great thing about 2x12, that stuff can last forever inside of a warehouse.
Yeah.
No
cupping. You can't even do it. It's just it's trying to bend steel, right? It's just, it's a beautiful thing. So hey, that's a great point. There is some great opportunity out there. And
anybody that has money and a warehouse and would like more information, just let me know. I'm here for you.
I'm only missing 2 of those: money in a warehouse.
I got a warehouse with no money,
so maybe between all 3 of us, we can figure that out. All right, guys. Look at Charles. Man, it was awesome having you on today. We're gonna have to keep doing this, and
definitely, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and everybody, make sure, Charles. How do people get a hold of you? Do you publish my contact information? I don't know. I mean, yeah, well,
only if you check the privacy box,
No, just I don't have the I only have a private chat down here, but I want you to just mention it out loud what number they can call you at or how they can get a hold of you, your website and everything.
Yeah, best phone number is 803-483-1300, and my email address is cdelatorre, like my last name, at ifpwood.com. Those are probably the two best ways to get a hold of me.
Hey, Charles, it was great having you, fill in for Matt. We originally thought, you were going to play the role of Brett Favre, but I mean, I loved having you.
All right, guys, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I enjoyed it.
You all have a good day and go get a workout in to get rid of that trader's fatigue.
Thanks, Ash. See ya.
Do my best.
You bet.